I hope that you are having a peaceful Memorial Day and that you're getting some time with loved ones, and in the moments that you spend reflecting on others, that things are not too heavy for you. However, Memorial Day is a challenging holiday, and it is intended for remembrance. On that note, I'd like to talk about murder, homicide, disease, and suicide. Death touches all. And today, I have 3 calls to action, which is first and foremost, get help if you need it. Number 2, connect others to help if they need it. And number 3, contribute to help others if you can. Specifically, types of help that are available include emergency help. There is always the crisis line 988. You can go to an emergency room and in that way get connected to care that you may need. You can do that for others as well. If that isn't the right answer at the moment, if it's not that urgent, there are books, there are apps. Perhaps Big Feelings might suit, or perhaps Warrior Ethos might suit. Many excellent chapters within each, like The War Inside Ourselves, or The Hardest Thing in the World. Maybe apropos. There's apps like the Unwinding Anxiety app or the Waking Up app. And there's medication or interventions that can go beyond that, like TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, which a friend of mine, Russell Toll, who is a psychiatrist and also a veteran of combat in Iraq with tens of friends of his that he lost, can administer now, thanks to having opened a new clinic that allows this. And he's making that available to Gold Star families and to service members at no charge. And the way he's able to do that is charitable contributions from those that can contribute to it. So if you are a service member or a Gold Star family member and would like to try this type of intervention, TMS, I strongly encourage you to get in touch, and I will share the resource for that so that you can. If you don't have that applying to you, but you'd like to give so that it can support the ability to give that service for free to family members, Gold Star family members, or service members, you can do that as well. So those are my calls to action today. But I have a little bit longer of a reflection that I'd like to share as well and go into more depth about my original provocative title, Murder, Homicide, Disease, and Suicide. Death Touches All. I'm wearing a t-shirt that says exactly that today. Death touches all. Pretty macabre, isn't it? It's from Scout Sniper Platoon Commander's course from 1 TAC 09. Marines and service members in general are quite comfortable with the fact that they will be participating in homicide. They will be killing. Colleagues of theirs will be killed in justifiable homicide in war. We mourn the loss of our brothers that die in combat, and sisters as well. But we understand it. We know that they joined intending to be part of a violent clash of wills. And though we are sad about it and we have a National Day of Remembrance for it, it's more acceptable to us as a cause of death than is murder, which has more intentionality behind it and less of a justifiable homicide flavor in that it involves premeditation and often stealth and often some method of not following the rules and the laws of war. And people might laugh at the laws of war, but it's very real and we study it. It may seem like snipers exist at the borderline of the laws of war, but despite the intention and the premeditation that is involved in a sniper's targeted killing of an enemy combatant, there's probably no more justifiable homicide than that where a sniper carries out a killing having carefully considered it and ensured that only those that are subject to the laws of armed combat are those that are being killed, as compared to bombs or other means. During my deployment to Afghanistan, there was a vehicle that was exploded by an IED that was emplaced intending to target Marines and Afghan soldiers, but instead killed Afghan civilians. That's one of those things that becomes questionable. Would you count that as collateral damage, that accidental homicide, negligent homicide, terrorism? Hard to say. When we miss with a bomb and accidentally kill civilians, it's counted as collateral damage, and it was not the intention. When they emplace an IED intending to destroy Afghan Army members or U.S. Marines, but they kill civilians instead, perhaps that's the correct way to think of it, versus when there are targeted killings of civilians in order to terrorize them to not support the war. We actually spend a lot of time thinking about this. Comparatively, a homicide where nobody is wearing their armor and they are preparing food and they are not actively in combat and the attacker is wearing the uniform of an ally and instead pops around and begins killing Marines that are not defended or prepared to defend themselves. Perhaps that's closer to murder. Still kind of borderline. That's another attack that on my second deployment was suffered by one of our sister teams, and I was brought in as a combat replacement following that incident with 25% team casualties, including the wounded. Lieutenant Colonel Palmer was the one that I knew who was killed by that attack, and he was the intended target. Everybody else was a target of opportunity. And perhaps the most expected or justifiable homicide was that of Sergeant Herbeck, who was killed by an IED while he was checking on people in another vehicle after the first strike. He was heroic, received a Medal for Valor, having saved the life of our Sergeant Major after he stepped on an IED. The death that I don't talk about often and haven't ever really written about is that of Corporal Shea. Corporal Shea died by suicide. And suicide is a kind of death that we don't talk about very much because it's a very uncomfortable subject. We don't believe it to be a justifiable homicide the way that we sometimes do. Deaths in war, or the judgment calls that may come at the varying degrees of it. We believe that suicide is never justified. And when I was initially one of the 4 investigating officers that were appointed following the death by suicide of Corporal Shea, I was very angry. I was very angry at him. The circumstances of his death are not generally public, and I don't want to make them more public than others. But what I do want to do is destigmatize things a bit. And I want to bring to surface the idea that I've seen mentioned by a friend of mine that we shouldn't talk about the intention behind suicide so much as we should talk about it as a cause. He died by suicide. I'm not going to say he committed suicide. What I feel now, rather than anger, is compassion and empathy and the understanding that he must have been in incredible pain to make a decision like ending his life the way that he did. And dying by suicide is something that happens to many more of my brothers and sisters than should. I believe more than are killed in the hot press of justifiable homicide or less justifiable homicide of war itself. The burden we assume, having served our nation and seen the death that we have of friends, brothers, sisters, civilians who did nothing to deserve it, and even enemy combatants, those we are there to kill in order to protect those civilians or our own countrymen and women. All of that takes a toll. And if it's taken a toll on you or those you love, I'm going to harken back to my original call to action. Seek help, help others to seek help, or contribute to those that are seeking help. Death touches all. Today's Memorial Day, and so on this day we are memorializing those who have died in service of our nation. Mostly we focus on those who have died as a result of combat operations directly. In the more or less justifiable homicides of war, I would suggest we should expand that as well to encompass those that we lose due to causes that result in them dying by suicide. But also, as the shirt says, death touches all. And the causes of death, the challenges of mental health, are not limited only to those who have served their nation. Corporal death by suicide happened very soon before our redeployment back to the United States. And it also happened very close to Mother's Day. And that was another item that I never really understood. That was very difficult for me. And now I just think of what pain he must have been in before that incident. There was recently in my neighborhood a mother that died by suicide as well. And part of her experience was such that she intended to protect her child, and she contacted the authorities before her suicide, and she left notes detailing food and provisions that she had left for her child and for her spouse. And despite this forethought, she didn't feel comfortable or safe or protected enough to take the action to get the help that she might have needed in order to continue living. And so I say again, the original call to action: seek help if you need it, please. Death touches all in your life. Everyone who knows you will be touched by your death. So let's delay it. Let's say not today to death. Aid others that are seeking help. And if you don't have any direct folks in your life that need your direct assistance, you can contribute to providing aid to those. There's many great charities. I could suggest that you support my friend Russ Toll, Dr. Russ Toll, and his clinic for TMS that's providing free treatment for service members and for Gold Star families, along with his wife, who's a nurse. They're also offering care to mothers that may be dealing with postnatal depression or at whatever stage. Treatment-resistant depression can be addressed with various types of medication and also with technological interventions like TMS. As a parting thought, I did think that I was going to take the time to compose all of this myself, just with my human hands, typing this all up as some kind of ode to the solemnity with which I feel this, instead of leveraging the AI tools that I have been for my posts so far this Memorial Day. But I don't think tech phobia is the right way to approach this or other problems. And emblematic of that is medications, TMS interventions, the technology in order to access immediate human care through 988 or emergency rooms or various chat apps or mental health apps exists. And I urge you if it would be valuable to you to take advantage of that and get help, or to aid others to get there, and if neither of those apply directly, to contribute. Technological means by which you could do this: you could donate, you could post or repost, encouraging people to seek care. You could just engage with this post if you would like to. It's not about me, but it is about the idea and continuing it forward. Thank you, if you have watched this far, for your kind attention, and please do get help if you need it, connect others to help if they need it, and contribute to help others if you can. Thank you again. May you have a peaceful Memorial Day weekend.